The war had lasted 3 years, and Princess Hana was tired of counting the dead. She stood in the throne room of the Valorian Empire, her mother's voice echoing off the crystal walls. Empress Nari looked older than Hana remembered. The war with humanity had done that to her. "You understand what this means?" her mother asked. Hana nodded. She understood perfectly. The humans were winning somehow. Not with better ships or bigger weapons, but with something else. Something the Valorians couldn't break. Every battle cost more lives than the Empire could afford. The military advisors had finally admitted the truth. They couldn't win this war, so they would end it with a marriage. "His name is Jiho Kang," her mother said, sliding a data tablet across the table. "He's a diplomat from Earth, 32 years old, educated, speaks our language fluently." Hana looked at the picture. A human man with dark hair and calm eyes stared back at her. He looked ordinary. Not like a warrior or a conqueror, just a man. "When do I meet him?" she asked. "Tomorrow." The meeting happened in the palace gardens. Hana wore her formal robes and waited by the fountain. When Jiho arrived, he bowed in the traditional Valorian way. His pronunciation was perfect when he greeted her in her own language. "Princess Hana, it's an honor to meet you." "Diplomat Kang," she replied, studying him. He was shorter than most Valorian males, but his movements were careful and controlled. He dressed simply in human clothes, nothing fancy or impressive. They walked through the gardens together. Jiho asked about the flowers. He knew their names in Valorian and asked about their growing seasons. He spoke about poetry he'd read from her world. He was polite, intelligent, and completely boring. Perfect for a political marriage, Hana thought bitterly. "I know this isn't what you wanted," Jiho said quietly. "I'm sorry for that." Hana stopped walking and looked at him. "Did you want this?" "No," he admitted. "But I understand why it's necessary. War destroys everything it touches. If our marriage can stop that, then it's worth it." At least he was honest. Hana could respect that. The wedding happened 3 weeks later. Ships from 100 worlds came to watch. Cameras broadcast the ceremony across both empires. Hana wore the traditional white robes of a Valorian bride. Jiho wore a mix of human and Valorian formal dress. They spoke the ancient vows, promising to unite their peoples through their union. When they sealed the marriage with joined hands over the sacred flame, cheers erupted from the crowd. The war was over. Peace had finally come. But Hana felt nothing except emptiness. Her new husband moved into her quarters in the palace. He took the smaller bedroom and didn't complain. He spent most of his time in the royal library, reading old books and practicing Valorian calligraphy. Sometimes he would show her his work, pages filled with careful brushstrokes forming ancient poems. "You're very good at this," Hana told him once. "I had a good teacher," Jiho replied. "Patience and practice. That's all it takes," the Valorian nobility whispered about him. They called him weak. They said humanity had sent them a scholar instead of a warrior, proving that humans knew their place now. Hana heard the gossip and said nothing. Let them think what they wanted, but she noticed small things about her husband. He woke before dawn every morning and disappeared for an hour. She followed him once and found him in an empty courtyard, moving through strange exercises. His movements were fluid like water, but there was power in them. When she made a sound, he spun around with shocking speed, his hand moving to his hip where a weapon would hang. Then he saw her and smiled. "Good morning. I didn't mean to wake you." "What were you doing?" she asked. "Old habits," he said. "From before. I find it helps me think." "Before what?" "Before I became a diplomat." He didn't explain further, and she didn't push. Months passed. The marriage remained polite and distant. Jiho tended a small garden he'd planted with seeds from Earth. Hana handled her royal duties. They ate meals together and spoke about safe topics: art, books, weather. At night, Hana sometimes wondered about the man she'd married. He was kind and respectful, but there was something hidden beneath his gentle surface, something he never let her see. She told herself it didn't matter. They'd both done their duty. The peace held. Soldiers returned home. Trade routes reopened. Their marriage had accomplished what it was supposed to accomplish. That should have been enough. It would have been if the Krelll hadn't come. 2 years passed quietly. Hana grew used to her life with Jiho. He was a constant presence, calm and steady like a still pond. Some mornings she would watch him practice his movements in the courtyard, wondering what those exercises meant. He never explained, and she never asked. They shared tea in the evenings. Jiho would tell stories about Earth, about mountains that touched clouds and oceans that stretched beyond sight. Hana told him about her childhood, about learning to ride the great flying beasts of her homeworld. They talked like old friends, but never like lovers. It was enough. Or so Hana told herself. The first news of the Krell Dominion came during a state dinner. A messenger interrupted the feast, whispering urgently to the Empress. Hana saw her mother's face go pale. "What is it?" she asked later. "Raiders," her mother said. "From beyond our borders. They attacked 3 of our outer stations, and how many ships? Enough to destroy them completely." The attacks continued over the following weeks. Small raids at first, testing Valorian defenses, then bigger strikes. The Krell were different from any enemy the Valorians had faced before. They were brutal, efficient, and they seemed to enjoy the destruction they caused. The War Council met daily. Hana attended as a princess of the royal family. Jiho came as her husband, sitting quietly in the corner. The generals spread holographic maps across the table, showing Krell fleet movements. "They're probing for weaknesses," Admiral Tayo said. He was the Empire's finest military mind, a veteran of 50 battles. "They want to know where we're vulnerable." "Then we show them strength," another general said. "We mass our fleets at the border and crush them." "That's what they expect," Jiho said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He rarely spoke during these meetings. "What do you know of military strategy, human?" the general asked with barely hidden contempt. "Enough to recognize a pattern," Jiho replied calmly. "They're not just testing your defenses. They're studying how you respond. Every move you make teaches them more about your tactics." "And what would you suggest?" Admiral Tayo asked. Unlike the others, he seemed genuinely curious. "Don't give them what they expect. Vary your responses. Make them uncertain." The general laughed. "Stick to your books, human." "Leave war to warriors." Jiho said nothing more. But Hana saw something flicker in his eyes. Something cold. That night she found him on their balcony staring at the stars. "You were a soldier," she said. "Not a question. Once," he admitted. "A long time ago. Why didn't you tell them?" "They might have listened." "Would they have? Or would they have trusted me less, knowing I came here as a warrior?" He turned to face her. "I promised myself I was done with that life, Hana. I wanted to be something different. Something better. What did you do? In the war?" Jiho was quiet for a long moment. "Things I'm not proud of. Things that needed to be done." She wanted to ask more, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Whatever he'd done, whatever he'd been, it still haunted him. The Krell attacks grew bolder. They struck deeper into Valorian space, destroying ships and stations. The death count climbed into the thousands. Hana watched her mother age years and weeks, the weight of responsibility crushing her. At another council meeting, intelligence officers presented their findings. The Krell Dominion was massive, spanning dozens of systems. They'd conquered 3 other civilizations in the past century. They were predators, and the Valorian Empire was their newest prey. "We need allies," the Empress said. "Contact the Human Federation. Ask if they'll honor our alliance." "Mother," Hana began, but Empress Nari cut her off. "We have no choice. We cannot face this alone," Jiho stood. "I can make the call. Earth will want to hear from me directly." The generals exchanged glances. They still saw him as weak as harmless. But Admiral Tayo nodded slowly. "Do it." That evening, Jiho used a secure communication channel in their quarters. Hana stood nearby, listening. "This is Kang," he said in human language. "Authorization code Delta 79er Black." There was a pause. Then a voice responded, speaking quickly. Hana's translator implant caught fragments. "Thought you were retired." "Never expected." "How bad is it?" "Bad enough," Jiho replied. "I need you to send a message to command. Tell them the Valorian Empire formally requests military assistance under the terms of the Alliance Treaty." "Will do." "And Kang, it's good to hear from you. We missed you." "I miss you too, Daeho. But I'm where I need to be." When he ended the call, Hana stared at him. "Who was that?" "An old friend." "From my unit." "Your unit?" Jiho sat down heavily. "I wasn't just a soldier, Hana. I was part of something called the Reaper Unit, Special Operations. We did the missions that couldn't be done any other way." "And they sent you here as a diplomat?" "They sent me here as insurance, in case the peace failed, in case the Valorians needed to remember what humans could do." He looked at her with sad eyes. "I'm sorry. I should have told you." Hana's mind raced. All this time, her gentle scholar husband had been a warrior. Not just any warrior, but something special. Something dangerous. Can you help? She asked. Against the Krelll? I don't know, Jiho said honestly, but I'll try. 3 days later, long-range sensors detected a massive Krelll fleet entering Valorian space. Hundreds of ships all heading for the heart of the Empire. The Empress ordered a full military mobilization. Every available vessel moved to the Helion Gate, a massive station that controlled the only route to the capital system. If the gate fell, the capital world would be defenseless. Hana found Jiho packing a bag in their quarters. Where are you going? She demanded. To the Helion Gate. I volunteered to help with the defense. You? They'll never accept you. Admiral Teo did. He assigned me as an observer. Jiho smiled grimly. I think he suspects what I really am. Then I'm coming with you. Hana, no, I'm not asking, Jiho. You're my husband. Where you go, I go. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But stay close to me. Promise me that. I promise. They left for the Helion Gate the next morning, racing toward the coming war. Hana didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. The man she married for peace was about to become something else entirely. Something terrifying. The Helion Gate was enormous, a station the size of a small moon. Thousands of ships surrounded it, the entire Valorian defense fleet preparing for the coming battle. Hana watched through the viewport as their shuttle approached, feeling small and helpless. Admiral Teo met them at the docking bay. He was a tall man with silver scales and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Princess Hana, Diplomat Kang, welcome to the gate. Thank you for allowing us to observe, Hana said formally. Teo's eyes shifted to Jiho. I looked into your service record, or I tried to. Most of it is classified even now. But I found enough. He stepped closer. You ended the war between our peoples, didn't you? Not the diplomats or the politicians, you. Jiho met his gaze. I helped end it, yes. How? I infiltrated your command station at Novara, placed charges on the main reactor and threatened to destroy it unless your fleet withdrew from the Terran colonies. Your commanders chose peace. Jiho's voice was flat, emotionless. 300 people died in the fighting before I reached the reactor. I killed most of them myself. Hana felt ice in her stomach. She'd known he was a soldier, but hearing him say it so calmly made it real. Teo nodded slowly. I commanded that station. I was off ship when you hit us. My second in command was one of the casualties. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was war. You did what needed to be done. Teo turned to leave, then paused. A ship arrived for you an hour ago. Unmarked human vessel. They said you'd know what it was. Jiho's expression didn't change, but Hana saw his hands tighten into fists. Thank you. I'll need to see it. The cargo hold contained a single large case, black metal with human writing stenciled on the side. Jiho opened it with his thumbprint. Inside was armor unlike anything Hana had ever seen. It was sleek and dark, covered in scratches and burn marks. Weapons were mounted in custom slots, each one looking more dangerous than the last. This is who I was, Jiho said quietly. Captain Kang of the Reaper unit. They called me the Ghost because I could go anywhere, kill anyone, and disappear. Hana reached out, touching one of the deep scars in the armor. How many missions? 47. I never failed one. He looked at her. I can still be that person, Hana. But if I put this on, I'm not sure I can take it off again. That life, it changes you, breaks pieces off your soul. We need you, she whispered. My people need you. I know. The Krelll fleet arrived 6 hours later. Sensors showed hundreds of warships, their hulls black and angular like insects made of metal. They didn't bother with negotiations or demands. They just attacked. The battle started badly. Krelll ships were fast and their weapons hit hard. The Valorian fleet fought well, but they were losing. Hana watched from the command center as red icons disappeared from the tactical display, each one representing a destroyed ship and hundreds of dead crew. Then the boarding pods launched. They're coming for the station, Teo shouted. All security teams to breach points. Explosions rocked the Helion Gate as Krelll pods smashed through the hull. Alarm screamed. Hana heard weapons fire echoing through the corridors. Jiho stood up. I'm going. Going where? Hana demanded. To stop them. He was already moving toward the door. Stay here. Stay safe. Jiho, wait. But he was gone, running toward the battle while everyone else ran away. Hana pulled up the security camera feeds on a display. She found Jiho 2 corridors away from the command center. He'd changed into his armor, the black suit making him look like a shadow given form. In his hands were weapons she didn't recognize, human designs that looked wrong somehow, too efficient and deadly. The first Krell squad rounded the corner ahead of him. 10 soldiers, each one bigger than Jiho, covered in thick armor and carrying heavy rifles. They saw him and opened fire. Jiho moved. That was the only word for it. He didn't run or dodge. He moved, faster than Hana thought possible, sliding between shots like water through fingers. His weapons fired in controlled bursts. The Krell soldiers fell, their armor no protection against whatever those weapons shot. 10 enemies in less than 5 seconds. All dead. Hana stared at the screen, unable to breathe. By the ancestors. Tayo whispered beside her. He'd been watching too. What is he? My husband, Hana said faintly. Jiho kept moving through the station. Every time Krell soldiers appeared, he killed them. Sometimes he used his weapons. Sometimes he used his hands, moving with brutal efficiency that looked like a dance. He was everywhere at once, appearing where the Krell breached and stopping them cold. Patch me through to him, Tayo ordered. All frequencies. A technician worked the controls. You're connected, Admiral. Kang, this is Tayo. What do you need from us? Jiho's voice came back, slightly breathless. Keep your soldiers away from sectors 7 through 12. I'm going to seal those areas and flush the Krell into a kill zone. We have civilians in those sectors. Not anymore. I already evacuated them. There was a pause, the sound of weapons fire. I'm going to need medical teams standing by. And someone should probably prepare body bags. A lot of them. The command center staff watched in silence as Jiho hunted through the station. He was one man against hundreds of Krell soldiers, and he was winning. Bodies piled up in his wake. The Krell started retreating, pulling back from the sectors he controlled. They're afraid of him, one officer said in disbelief. They should be, Tayo replied. Hana couldn't look away from the screens. This was her husband, the man who had spent 2 years reading poetry and tending gardens. He'd hidden this inside himself, locked it away. But now it was free, and she understood why humans had won their war. They didn't win because they were stronger or smarter. They won because they were willing to create soldiers like Jiho, men and women who could become death itself when they needed to be. A massive explosion shook the station. On the tactical display, Hana saw one of the Krell boarding pods rupture, venting hundreds of soldiers into space. What happened? She asked. Kang just destroyed their primary breach point from inside, a technician reported. He sealed the sector and overloaded their pod's reactor. Tayo pulled up the casualty reports. We've lost 300 soldiers. The Krell have lost over 2,000, mostly to him. He shook his head. One man. One human man did this. Jiho's voice crackled over the comm. Admiral, the boarding assault is broken, but they're regrouping. Their flagship is moving into position. I think they're going to fire on the station directly. Can we stop them? Not from here. There was a long pause. But I can board their flagship. Kill the crew. Take out their command structure. That's suicide. Tayo protested. No, Jiho said softly. That's just Tuesday. Send me a boarding pod. I'm going to finish this. Hana grabbed the comm.
Jiho, no, please!
I'm sorry, Hana, but this is what I am. What I've always been. His voice was gentle again, the way it sounded when they had tea together. I'll come back. I promise. The line went dead. Hana watched as a single Valorian boarding pod launched from the Helion Gate, a tiny speck racing toward the enormous Krell flagship. Inside was her husband, the man she'd married for peace, going to war one more time. And deep in her heart, Hana knew nothing would ever be the same again. The boarding pod hit the Krell flagship like a bullet punching through armor. Hana watched the sensor feed, her heart's racing. The pod was so small compared to the massive warship. It looked impossible, like an insect attacking a mountain. Do we have visual inside the ship? Admiral Tayo asked. No, sir. We can track his armor signal, but no cameras. Hana stared at the small dot representing Jiho's location. It was moving fast, deeper into the ship. What's he doing? Heading for the reactor level, if I'm reading this right, a tactical officer said. That's actually smart. Disable their power and the whole ship goes dark. There are thousands of Krell soldiers between him and that reactor, Tayo said quietly. I know. Minutes crawled by like hours. The dot kept moving. Sometimes it stopped, probably when Jiho encountered enemies. Then it would start again, pushing deeper. An alert flashed on the main display. Admiral, the Krell flagship is launching fighters. Dozens of them. All defensive batteries, engage those fighters. Don't let them reach our fleet. Tayo gripped the edge of the command table. Kang, can you hear me? They're sending fighters. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. No response. Either Jiho couldn't hear or he was too busy to answer. The battle outside raged on. Valorian ships fought desperately against the Krell fleet while fighters swarmed like angry insects. Explosions bloomed in space, each one a ship dying. Hana felt helpless, trapped in the command center while people died all around her. Signal from the flagship, a communications officer shouted. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through. A voice filled the command center, speaking in Krell language that the translators rendered into Valorian. Attention Valorian forces. There is an intruder on our flagship. One soldier, just one, but he has killed 300 of my crew in 10 minutes. Hana's breath caught. 300. Her gentle husband had killed 300 soldiers in 10 minutes. The Krell voice continued, and now Hana could hear the anger in it. I am General Vorak, commander of this fleet, and I'm going to kill this human personally. Every soldier I lose will be repaid tenfold on your worlds. This human has signed your death warrant. The broadcast ended. He's made them angry, Teo said. That's good. Angry enemies make mistakes. Or they fight harder, Hana whispered. The dot on the display stopped moving. It stayed in one place for long minutes. Hana's hands clenched so tight her claws drew blood from her palms. He stopped, the tactical officer said. Looks like Sector 9, Level 30. That's not the reactor. What's there? According to our intelligence files on Krell ship designs, that's crew quarters, barracks. He's in the middle of their soldier housing. Hana felt sick. Jiho had stopped in the worst possible place, surrounded by thousands of enemies. Wait, the officer said, leaning closer to his screen. I'm reading power fluctuations in that sector. Big ones, the ship's lights flickered. On the main view screen, the Krell flagship's running lights dimmed and died. The massive vessel went dark except for emergency lighting. He did it, Teo breathed. He cut their main power. How? Hana asked. He wasn't at the reactor. Must have found an access point. Overloaded the system from inside. Tayo actually smiled. This human keeps surprising me. But the dot still wasn't moving. Minutes passed. 5. Then 10. Admiral, the tactical officer said nervously. His armor signal is getting weaker. He might be damaged. Or he's conserving power, Tayo suggested. But Hana heard the doubt in his voice. She couldn't take it anymore. Send a rescue team, please. Princess, we can't. The flagship still has thousands of soldiers. A rescue team would be slaughtered. Then send me. I'll go myself. Absolutely not, Teo said firmly. If something happens to you, the Empress will have my head. And the alliance with humanity will collapse. Hana wanted to scream. She wanted to grab a ship and fly to that flagship herself. But Teo was right. She was trapped by her own importance, forced to watch while her husband might be dying. The Krell fighters broke through the defensive line. 3 of them headed straight for the Helion Gate, weapons charging. Valorian point defense systems opened fire, filling space with tracers. 2 fighters exploded. The 3rd got through. Brace for impact, someone yelled. The fighter slammed into the station's lower hull. The explosion shook everything. Alarms screamed as atmosphere vented from the damaged sections. Hana grabbed a console to keep from falling. Damage report, Tayo barked. Hull breach on levels 15 through 20. We're sealing emergency bulkheads. Casualties estimated at 60 personnel. 60 people dead in one hit. And the battle was still going. The Valorians were losing, slowly but surely. They needed something to change, some advantage. They needed Jiho. The dot on the display moved. Just a little, but it moved. He's alive, Hana shouted. He's moving again! Everyone crowded around the tactical display. The dot crawled forward, slower than before, but steady. It was heading up now, toward the command decks of the flagship. That's where General Vorak will be, Tayo said. The bridge. The dot stopped again. This time for only a minute. Then it jumped forward several corridors in an instant. What just happened? The tactical officer asked, confused. Explosion, another officer reported. Big one. He just destroyed something on the flagship's upper decks. Hana watched the dot resume its climb toward the bridge. Her husband was hurt, maybe dying, but he kept going. He'd promised to come back, and Jiho always kept his promises. The battle outside was turning desperate. Half the Valorian fleet was damaged or destroyed. The Helion Gate itself had taken multiple hits. But the Krell were focused on their flagship now, trying to protect it. Their formation was breaking apart. If we could just make them retreat, Teo muttered. If we could break their will to fight. The dot reached the bridge level. It stopped right at the center of the command deck. He's there, Hana whispered. He's on the bridge. For 5 long minutes nothing happened. The battle raged. Ships died. The dot didn't move. Then every Krell ship in the system received a transmission. It appeared on the Valorian displays too. Audio only. Jiho's voice filled the command center. He sounded tired and pain, but his words were clear and cold. This is Captain Jiho Kang of Earth. Your general is dead. Your command staff is dead. Your flagship is crippled. I've given orders to detonate the main reactor in 60 seconds unless your fleet withdraws immediately. Silence. Every person in the command center held their breath. This is what one human can do, Jiho continued. One soldier. Imagine what an army of us would do. Imagine what a fleet of human warships would do to your worlds. His voice dropped lower, harder. You have 50 seconds to start your retreat. After that, this flagship becomes a tomb and I'll hunt down every ship that remains. Your choice. The transmission ended. By all the ancestors, Teo whispered. He's bluffing. He has to be. He can't possibly reach the reactor in time. But the Krell didn't know that. On the tactical display, their ships started moving. Not forward. Not attacking. They were running. They're retreating. An officer shouted.
The entire fleet is breaking off.
Cheers erupted through the command center. Soldiers hugged each other. Some cried with relief. They'd won. Against impossible odds, they'd won. Hana didn't cheer. She was watching the dot on the display. It was moving again, back toward the hangar bay where Jiho had entered. But it was moving so slowly now, stumbling. Send a rescue shuttle, she ordered. Now, he needs help. Already launching, Teo said quietly. We'll bring him home, Princess. Hana sank into a chair, all the strength leaving her body. The battle was over. The Krell were retreating. Jiho had done the impossible, but at what cost? What had this battle taken from him? What had it taken from them both? She would know soon enough. For now, all she could do was wait and pray that her husband would survive what he'd become. The medical bay was chaos. Wounded soldiers filled every bed, and doctors rushed between them trying to save lives. Hana pushed through the crowds, following the emergency team that carried Jiho. They'd found him in the Krell flagship's hangar, collapsed next to a pile of dead soldiers. His armor was cracked and burned, covered in blood. Some of it was his. Make room, the lead doctor shouted. Critical patient coming through. They put Jiho on a medical table under bright lights. Hana watched as they worked to remove his armor. Each piece came away revealing new injuries, burns, deep cuts, a hole in his left shoulder where something had punched completely through. How is he alive? One of the doctors muttered. Human biology, another replied. Their bodies can survive incredible damage. But we need to stabilize him fast. Hana wanted to help, but she'd only be in the way. She stood against the wall, watching as they worked. Jiho's eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow and rapid. He looked so fragile without his armor, just a man made of flesh and blood like anyone else. Admiral Teo appeared beside her. Princess, you should rest. I can't leave him. He'll be in surgery for hours. There's nothing you can do here. I don't care. I'm staying. Teo nodded and stayed with her. Together they watched the doctors fight to save Jiho's life. Hours passed. The surgery continued. Hana lost track of time. Her legs ached from standing, but she didn't sit. She barely blinked, afraid that if she looked away, Jiho would slip away from her. Finally, the lead doctor stepped back from the table. We've stabilized him. He'll live, though recovery will take time. The human body is remarkable. If he were Valorian, he'd be dead 3 times over. Hana felt tears on her face. She didn't remember starting to cry. Can I see him? He's unconscious. We've induced a medical coma to help his body heal. He won't wake for at least 2 weeks. I don't care. I need to see him. They let her approach the table. Jiho looked peaceful now, the pain gone from his face. Bandages covered most of his body. Machines beeped steadily, monitoring his vital signs. Hana took his hand carefully. His skin was warm, alive. I'm here, she whispered. I'll be here when you wake up. I promise. The days blurred together. Hana stayed in the medical bay, sleeping in a chair beside Jiho's bed. She ate when people brought her food. She spoke to visitors when they came. But mostly she just sat and held her husband's hand. News from across the empire reached her. The Krell fleet had retreated beyond Valorian borders and hadn't returned. Intelligence reports suggested the Krell leadership was in chaos. General Vorak's death had created a power vacuum, and different factions were fighting for control. One human had broken their entire war machine. Visitors came to see Jiho. Admiral Tayo came daily, bringing updates on station repairs. "We found footage from the Krell flagship," he said one day. "Security cameras that survived." "I watched some of it, and?" Anna asked. "Your husband is the most dangerous person I've ever seen. The way he fights. It's not natural. It's like watching death itself move through a room." Tayo shook his head. "I understand now why humanity beat us. We never had a chance. Other Valorian officers came too. Some brought respect, finally understanding what humans were capable of. Others brought fear. They looked at Jiho like he was a weapon that might go off at any moment. The Empress herself visited on the 5th day. Hana's mother sat beside the bed and studied Jiho's sleeping face. "When he wakes, he'll be a hero to our people," she said, "but also something to fear. Some will want him to train our soldiers. Others will want him gone back to Earth where he can't threaten us." "He's not a threat," Hana said. "He destroyed a Krell flagship by himself. He killed thousands. Of course he's a threat." Her mother's eyes softened. "But he's also your husband, and he saved us. I won't forget that. Whatever happens, he has my protection." On the 8th day, human ships arrived. 3 warships and a diplomatic vessel, sent by Earth in response to the Valorian request for aid. They'd come too late for the battle, but they came anyway. A man in a human military uniform visited the medical bay. He was young, maybe Jiho's age, with the same controlled movements. He introduced himself as Commander Daeho Park. "I served with Jiho," he explained. "We were in the Reaper unit together. When I heard what happened, I had to see him." "He's still in a coma," Hana said. "I know. I needed to see he was alive." Daeho looked at Jiho with obvious affection. He was the best of us. The one who could do the impossible missions. We called him Ghost because he could slip in anywhere and complete any objective. But that life broke something in him. When the war ended, he said he was done. Said he'd found something better. What did he find? Daeho smiled at Hana. "You. He told me about you in his last message. Said he'd finally found peace. Then the Krell showed up and dragged him back into hell. Will he be okay? After this?" "I don't know," Daeho admitted. "Going back to that life. It's like opening an old wound. But Jiho's strong. If anyone can survive it, he can." On the 14th day, the doctors began reducing the medications keeping Jiho unconscious. "He should wake within a day or two," they told Hana. "Be patient." She was anything but patient. She watched his face constantly, looking for signs of consciousness. She talked to him, telling him about everything happening in the Empire, about the peace that his sacrifice had bought. On the 15th day, his eyes opened. Hana was reading to him from a poetry book when it happened. She looked up and found him staring at her. His eyes were tired and filled with pain but aware. "Jiho." She grabbed his hand. "You're awake." "Hana," he whispered. His voice was rough from disuse. "How long?" 15 days. You've been unconscious for 15 days. He closed his eyes briefly. "The battle. The Krell, gone, they retreated. You won. How many did we lose?" 1,700 Valorian soldiers. 23 ships. Hana squeezed his hand. "It would have been much worse without you. You saved thousands." Jiho turned his head away. "I killed thousands too. Krell soldiers. I can still see their faces. They would have killed us all." "I know. That doesn't make it easier." He looked back at her and Hana saw tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I promised you I was done being a soldier. I broke that promise. You saved my people. You have nothing to apologize for, don't I?" He tried to sit up and winced. "I'm a killer, Hana. That's what I am. That's what I'll always be. You married a diplomat, a scholar. You got a monster instead." Hana leaned close, forcing him to look at her. "I got a hero. A man who sacrificed his peace, his soul, to save people he barely knew. You think that makes you a monster? You're wrong. You watched me kill thousands. You saw what I became. I saw my husband keep his promise. You said you'd come back, and you did." She touched his face gently. "I don't care what you were. I don't care what you had to become. You're here. You're alive. That's all that matters." Jiho stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he started to cry. Not quiet tears, but deep, racking sobs. All the pain and trauma he'd been holding inside came pouring out. Hana held him, careful of his injuries, and let him cry. She didn't offer empty words or false comfort. She just stayed with him, the way he'd stayed with her through 2 years of quiet companionship. When the tears finally stopped, Jiho took a shaky breath. Thank you. For what? For not leaving? For not being afraid of me? I am afraid, Hana admitted. I'm terrified of losing you, of watching you go back to that dark place. But I'm not afraid of you. I never will be, he smiled weakly. I don't deserve you. Too bad. You're stuck with me. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Outside the medical bay, the universe kept turning. The Krelll licked their wounds. The Valorian Empire rebuilt. Humanity and the Valorians grew closer. But in that quiet room, 2 people held on to each other and began the slow process of healing. Not just physical wounds, but the deeper scars that war leaves on the soul. It would take time. Maybe a long time. But they would face it together. That was enough. 3 months after the battle, Jiho was cleared for light duty. The doctors said his body had healed remarkably well, though he'd carry scars for the rest of his life. Hana thought the deeper scars, the ones on his mind, would take much longer to heal. They returned to the capital world together. The palace felt different somehow, smaller than Hana remembered. Too quiet after the chaos of the Helion Gate. Life tried to return to normal. Jiho went back to his garden. Hana resumed her royal duties. But everything had changed. People looked at them differently now. Some with respect, others with fear, and a few with something close to worship. The war hero and his princess, Jiho said bitterly one evening. They were in their quarters watching the sun set through the tall windows. That's what they call us now. Does it bother you? Yes, I'm not a hero. Heroes don't have nightmares about the people they killed. Hana moved closer to him. You still have them? Every night. I see their faces, hear their screams. He rubbed his eyes tiredly. Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it. All that death, even if it saved more lives in the end. Before Hana could answer, a servant knocked on their door. Princess Hana, the Empress requests your presence in the throne room. Both of you. They found the throne room filled with military officers and government officials. Empress Nari sat on her throne looking grave. Admiral Teo stood beside her. Mother? Hana asked. What's happening? We have a situation, the Empress said. Show them. Teo activated a holographic display. It showed the border regions between Valorian and Krelll space. 2 days ago, our scouts detected unusual activity. The Krelll are mobilizing again. A new general has taken command of their forces. They're coming back? Jiho asked quietly. We believe so. Intelligence suggests they're planning a revenge strike. They want to erase the shame of their defeat. Teo looked directly at Jiho. They want to kill you specifically. You've become a symbol to them, a threat that must be eliminated. How long do we have? 2 weeks, maybe 3. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Jiho, waiting for him to speak. What do you need from me? He finally asked. The War Council wants you to train our special forces, the Empress said. Teach them to fight the way you do. Turn them into weapons like you? No. The word hung in the air like a slap. Several officers gasped. No? An older general sputtered. You dare refuse the Empress? Jiho faced him calmly. I do. Because what you're asking is impossible. I spent 10 years becoming what I am. I had the best teachers humanity could provide, the best equipment and genetic enhancements that your people don't have. You can't make soldiers like me in 2 weeks. You can't make them at all. Then what do you suggest? Teo asked. Let me call Earth, bring in human special forces. We can have teams here in 5 days. They'll help defend against the Krelll. Absolutely not, the old general snapped. Allowing human soldiers on our worlds? It would be an insult to our military. It would save lives, Jiho shot back. Isn't that more important than pride? Arguments erupted across the room. Some officers supported Jiho's plan. Others opposed it violently. The debate raged for an hour until the Empress raised her hand for silence. Enough. We will not beg Earth for help. The Valorian military will handle this ourselves. She looked at Jiho. But I would ask you to fight with us again, as an advisor and, if necessary, a warrior. Jiho closed his eyes. Hana saw the pain cross his face. He'd hoped to be done with killing, to put that life behind him forever. I understand if you refuse, the Empress continued. You've done enough. More than enough. No one would blame you for walking away. I would blame myself, Jiho said softly. He opened his eyes and looked at Hana. What do you think? Everyone turned to stare at her. Hana felt the weight of their expectations. They wanted her to tell him to fight, to be their weapon again. But what did she want? I think, she said slowly, that this is your choice, not mine, not anyone else's. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. Jiho smiled at her, a real smile for the first time in weeks. Thank you. He turned back to the Empress. I'll fight. But on my terms? I won't train your soldiers to be killers. Instead, I'll teach them to survive, to think like special operators. And when the Krelll come, I'll do what I do best, which is hunt. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Jiho worked with the Valorian Special Forces, teaching them tactics and techniques. Hana watched him train the soldiers, seeing a different side of her husband. He was patient but demanding, pushing them to their limits and beyond. Fear is a tool, he told them. Use it, don't let it control you. When you face an enemy, you need to be scarier than they are. At night, he came back to their quarters exhausted. Hana would help him treat his old wounds, which still ached when he pushed himself too hard. They didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. The coming battle loomed over everything. Commander Deho stayed at the palace, his human ships ready to evacuate civilians if needed. He and Jiho spent hours planning defensive strategies. It's like old times, Deho said one evening. The three of them were having dinner together. Remember the Novara station? We planned that operation the same way. You, me, and a bottle of terrible whiskey. We were younger then, Jiho said. Stupider. We succeeded, though. Barely. Hana listened to them talk, hearing the bond between two soldiers who'd fought together. She understood then that this was a part of Jiho she could never fully reach, a part forged in battle and blood. On the 13th day, the Krelll arrived. Their fleet was smaller than before, but more focused. 20 warships all heading straight for the capital system. No diplomacy, no warnings, just war. The Valorian fleet moved to intercept. Admiral Tayo commanded from his flagship with Jiho aboard as his tactical advisor. Hana had wanted to go with them, but Jiho had refused. If something happens to me, he'd said, the Empire needs you alive. Promise me you'll stay on the planet. She'd promised, though it hurt to watch him leave. The battle began at the edge of the system. Valorian ships engaged the Krelll fleet, trying to stop them before they reached the capital world. The fighting was fierce. Both sides took heavy casualties. Hana watched from the palace command center, monitoring the tactical displays. She saw ships dying, red icons winking out one by one. The Valorians were losing. Admiral Tayo is requesting emergency reinforcements, an officer reported. The Krelll are breaking through. Send everything we have, the Empress ordered, but it wasn't enough. The Krelll pushed forward, accepting terrible losses to reach their objective. 3 of their ships broke through the defensive line, heading directly for the capital. They're targeting the palace, someone said. They're coming for us. Planetary defense batteries opened fire, destroying 1 ship. The other 2 kept coming. Warning alarms screamed through the palace. Guards rushed to defensive positions. Hana stood in the command center watching death approach. The Krelll wanted to kill Jiho, but they'd settle for killing his wife. Send a message. Make him suffer. She wouldn't hide. If this was the end, she'd face it standing. The 2 Krelll ships entered the atmosphere, burning bright as they descended. They were damaged, trailing smoke, but still coming. Still dangerous. One exploded as defense batteries finally found their mark. The other crashed into the palace district, smashing through buildings. It came to rest barely a kilometer from the palace itself. Get the Empress to safety. Hana shouted, What about you? Her mother asked, I'm staying. Someone needs to coordinate the defense. Empress Nari nodded and let her guards lead her away. Hana turned back to the displays, watching as the crashed Krelll ship opened. Soldiers poured out, hundreds of them advancing toward the palace. All security teams, engage, she ordered. Don't let them reach the civilians. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the halls. Valorian guards fought desperately against the Krelll assault. But there were too many. The Krelll were pushing through. Hana grabbed a weapon from a guard station. She'd never fired a gun before, but she'd watched Jiho practice. How hard could it be? She was about to find out. Because the Krelll had just breached the palace doors. The Krelll soldiers moved through the palace like a dark tide. Hana fired her weapon, missing more than she hit, but forcing them to take cover. Around her, palace guards fought with desperate courage. They were dying, but they were buying time for others to escape. "Princess, you need to leave," a guard captain shouted. "I'm not abandoning my people," Hana shouted back, firing again. Then she heard it, a sound that made her heart leap. The roar of engines overhead, close and getting closer. She looked up through a shattered window and saw it, a single human drop pod falling like a meteor. It crashed into the palace courtyard. The doors exploded open, and Jiho stepped out. He was in full armor again, weapons ready. But this time Hana saw something different in how he moved. Not the cold, efficient killer from the Helion Gate. This was rage. Pure, focused rage. He'd been in space fighting the Krelll fleet. He'd somehow gotten a pod and launched himself at the planet when he learned Hana was in danger. He'd come home. The Krelll saw him and opened fire. Jiho moved through the bullets like they weren't there. His weapons fired back, precise and deadly. Krelll soldiers fell. He was a storm of violence, unstoppable and terrible. "Jiho," Hana called. He heard her. His head turned, and even through his helmet she could see his eyes. "Get behind me," he said. Now she ran to him. He pushed her gently behind his armored form and kept fighting. More Krelll poured into the courtyard. Dozens of them. They surrounded Jiho and Hana, cutting them off from the palace guards. "You should have stayed away, human," one Krelll soldier said in broken Valorian. "Now you die with your princess." "No," Jiho said quietly. "Now you learn what it means to threaten my wife." He moved. That was the only way Hana could describe it. One moment he was standing still. The next he was among the Krelll, his hands and weapons moving in a blur. Bodies fell, the air filled with screams. Hana had seen him fight before, but never like this. Never with this much raw fury. He wasn't trying to be efficient or tactical. He was just destroying everything in his path. In less than a minute, all the Krelll soldiers in the courtyard were dead. Jiho stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard. His armor was covered in blood and scoring from weapons fire. He turned to look at Hana. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." "Jiho, how did you get here so fast?" "Stole a drop pod." "Jumped without permission." He reached up and removed his helmet. His face was bruised and bleeding from a cut over his eye. "When I heard they'd breached the palace, I couldn't think. I just knew I had to reach you. More Krelll were coming." Hana could hear them in the palace fighting the guards. "We need to get you to safety," Jiho said. "No. We need to end this. All of it." Hana grabbed his arm. "Teach me. Right now. Teach me how to fight. Hana, there's no time. Then make time. I'm tired of being helpless. I'm tired of watching people die while I hide." She met his eyes. "You said you'd teach me." "I'm ready to learn." Jiho stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, basic rules. Stay behind cover. Aim for center mass. Don't think, just react. And stay with me. Always." He handed her a weapon from one of the fallen Krelll. It was heavy but felt right in her hands. "Together?" she asked. "Together." They moved into the palace side by side. When they found Krelll soldiers, Jiho would engage first, drawing fire. Hana would find an angle and shoot. Her aim got better with each shot. Fear made her focused. Love made her fierce. They fought their way through 3 corridors. Freed trapped civilians, found wounded guards and got them to safety. All the while Jiho guided her, protecting her, teaching her. "Good," he shouted as she dropped a Krelll soldier with 3 clean shots. "You're a natural." "I have a good teacher." They reached the main hall where the heaviest fighting was happening. At least 50 Krelll soldiers had the remaining palace guards pinned down. It was a massacre waiting to happen. "Stay here," Jiho said. "I'll handle this." "No." Hana grabbed him. "We do this together." "That's what you said." He looked at her and something in his expression changed. The rage faded, replaced by something softer. Pride, maybe. Or love. "Okay. Together. But follow my lead." They charged into the hall. Jiho drew most of the fire, his armor absorbing hits that would have killed anyone else. Hana moved from cover to cover, shooting when she had clear targets. The palace guards saw them and rallied, pushing back against the Krelll. The tide turned. Slowly at first, then faster. The Krelll had expected to find helpless victims. Instead, they found a princess who refused to give up, and a human who fought like a demon. When the last Krelll soldier fell, silence filled the hall. Guards stared at Hana in shock. Their princess, covered in dust and blood, standing over enemy bodies with a smoking weapon in her hands. "The palace is secure," she announced. "Get medical teams to the wounded now." They scrambled to obey. Jiho took her hand. You did well. I was terrified. Good. Fear keeps you alive. You used it instead of letting it control you. He smiled weakly. I'm proud of you. News came from space. The battle was over. Admiral Tayo had destroyed the Krell fleet. No enemy ships escaped. The threat was ended, finally and completely. But the cost had been high. Hundreds of soldiers dead, dozens of ships destroyed, the palace district in ruins. Days later, after the wounded were treated and the dead honored, the Empress called another meeting in the throne room. This one was different. No war council, no debate, just family. I'm stepping down, Empress Nari announced. Hana stared at her mother in shock. What? I'm tired, daughter. The wars, the death. I've ruled for 40 years. It's time for younger blood to lead. She looked at Hana with soft eyes. You showed courage in the battle, leadership. You fought beside your people instead of hiding. That's the kind of ruler this empire needs. Mother, I can't. You can. And you will, with your husband at your side. The Empress turned to Jiho. If you'll accept the position, Prince Consort of the Valorian Empire, Jiho bowed. I'm honored. But I have a condition. Name it. No more war. We build alliances with Earth, with other species. We use strength to protect, not conquer. And I never have to kill again unless there's absolutely no other choice. Agreed. The coronation happened a month later. Hana wore the crown of her ancestors. Feeling its weight both literally and figuratively, Jiho stood beside her in formal robes that mixed human and Valorian styles. Empress Hana, the announcer proclaimed, and Prince Jiho, long may they reign. The crowd cheered. Humans and Valorians mixed together, celebrating peace. That night, in their private quarters, Hana and Jiho sat on their balcony. The city below was being rebuilt. The scars of war would heal eventually. Do you regret it? Hana asked. Everything that happened? Which part? All of it. The marriage. The fighting. Becoming a symbol when you just wanted to be a scholar. Jiho took her hand. I regret the death. The violence. The nightmares that won't stop. He looked at her. But I don't regret you. I don't regret finding something worth fighting for. Worth living for? I was just a political arrangement, Hana said softly. You were, at first, a duty, an obligation. He smiled. But somewhere along the way you became everything. When I heard you were in danger, I didn't think about duty or politics. I just knew I had to save you or die trying. Hana leaned against him. I love you. I should have said it before, but I was afraid. Afraid of what? That you'd think I only loved the warrior, the hero, not the man who tends gardens and writes poetry. And do you? Love the warrior? I love all of you. The scholar, the soldier, the man who can be both gentle and fierce, the husband who came back for me. She looked up at him. You taught me to fight, not just with weapons, but with courage. You made me stronger. You were always strong, Jiho said. I just helped you see it. They sat in comfortable silence watching the stars. Somewhere up there, human and Valorian ships patrolled together, protecting the peace they'd all fought so hard to win. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, conflicts, difficult decisions. But they would face them together. An empress and her prince, a princess who learned to be a warrior who learned to be a prince, and maybe, just maybe, they'd build something better than what came before. A galaxy where different species could live together, where strength was used to protect instead of conquer, where love could bridge even the widest divides. Jiho had married Hana for peace. She had married him for the same reason, but they'd found something more.